So in this particular video, I'm going to talk about spyware, malware, Trojan horses, adware, and things like that. Now, before we get started, I know in video 1, I talked about it's important for you to get to know your computer better. So if you don't know how much space you have and you don't know how much RAM you have and basically the specs of your system, I'll show you how to do that. At the bottom left-hand corner, just click on the Start button for Windows. And then you're going to see a My Computer here. And if you don't see it here, just basically go back to your desktop and right-click on My Computer, click on Properties, and there you go. Basically, this screen is going to allow you to see the specifications on your actual computer. So right now I'm using Windows Vista Business version, and even the Business version I can tell you is pretty slow. And when it comes to Vista, just because Vista is pretty slow. And I have 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is a lot of RAM. I have a Core 2 Quad CPU with 2.8 gigahertz. All that means is there's 4 processors. But for many of you, I know that you're going to have a computer, if you bought it, let's say in 2005, is most likely going to have about 512 megs of RAM. If you bought it 2006, 2007, or 2008, you're going to probably at least going to have about 2 gigabytes of RAM or 1 to 2 gigs of RAM. Now, RAM plays a huge part in your computer's speed because once you start adding programs onto your computer, and if you do have a lot of spyware, malware, or Trojan horses that are hiding inside of your computer and running in the memory without you knowing it, it's going to slow down your computer big time. So that's why I address protection of your computer. We'll eventually speed it up, but we'll actually talk about how to tweak your system, how to clean it up, and things like that. So it's basically good to know what you're working with. So now that I have shown you the system, let me show you how to find out how much space you have. If you double click on My Computer or click on My Computer, you'll notice that you have hard drives here, and it'll actually tell you how much free space you have. Like for example, my C drive has about 558 gigs of free space, and my D drive has about 439 gigs of space. And I basically want to show you this because the more space you have that is free, the better. Because here's the thing, not only is RAM and memory important, right? Because memory allows your computer to run faster. But sometimes if that RAM is being used, then your computer will resort to using your computer's hard drive space, to speed things up. So if you can do your best to remove all the programs that you don't need, remove files that you don't need, or even, let's say if you had a backup drive, put the files onto that, external hard drive. If they're files that you necessarily don't really need, then remove it and put it on there because it's really going to slow your computer down a lot more. Now that you know the basics, let's move on to talking about spyware and things like that. If you don't know what spyware is, it's basically that same word. Spyware, it's spying on you without you knowing it, but it's sitting on your computer, and if you press Alt-Control-Delete, for example, and if you start the task manager, you can actually see, the CPU usage, the memory usage, and with Vista, it's already using about 29% for the programs that I'm having open out of the 8 gigs of RAM, which is a lot. But if you look at the task manager, you can actually see the processes that are running and the services that are running and things like that. But if you don't know anything about that, don't worry about it. You don't need to open that up. So let's talk about spyware. Spyware basically affects your computer. Let's say you open up a browser and you begin to get lots and lots of pop-ups. Those are generally a symptom of spyware. Or let's say, for example, that you go to the internet and your home page changes from what you wanted it to be to something totally different. It forwards you to a search engine and things like that. It's most likely going to be a piece of spyware or a piece of malware sitting on your computer that you just don't know about. And a lot of people don't know this, but the way you get spyware and malware and Trojan horses, it's mainly because people download things like free screensavers, free stuff, free software that you just download from anywhere. And not really to bash screensavers or anything, but I have seen the bulk of spyware come in from screensavers. Like, you would just not even think about it. But basic screensavers or wallpapers too. Those are good ones to get spyware from. So if you don't have to download wallpaper or free screensavers, then try to avoid doing that unless the site is actually legitimate and has a good record. And of course, that's not to say all screensavers or all wallpapers have spyware. That's definitely not true either. Now, the question is, okay, well, how do I solve that? Well, if I go to Google here, there are several programs that I would recommend that you actually download. The first one is free, luckily. It's called Spybot Search and Destroy. So type that into Google and press enter, and you'll see a lot of results on this. This is actually a program that we actually used in the IT department. I used to work for a company, and I used to be an IT support person in that field, and one of the softwares we downloaded was Spybot Search and Destroy, mainly because it was free, but mainly because it was updated frequently as well. So if you go to Spybot Search and Destroy, and I'll minimize this or make it smaller so you can see better, what you can do is you can choose your language, in this case is English, and go straight to the download section. And as you can see, it's free, but if you find that it actually works and it finds a lot of spyware on your computer and you feel that it is worthwhile, you can always donate, to this place. But anyways, if you go to the download and you download the software, you can also download the detection updates, which are basically updates of, protection rules and things like that, because there's always going to be new spyware coming out and about. And because of that, you need to keep yourself safe, and you need to constantly update the detection updates. Now, one thing to note is that Spybot Search and Destroy I've used for many, many years until I found a piece of software called Spy Sweeper. Now, if you want to stay on the free end, that's fine, and download this software and try that out. But there is another software that I would recommend if you can dish out about $30 a year. It's called Spy Sweeper. And I remember when Spy Sweeper came out way back when I was in high school, and they were just evolving, and now you can find Spy Sweeper, which is made by Webroot, and you can find those in a lot of big electronic stores. So as far as reliability goes, I think Spy Sweeper has been one of the best spyware programs that I've used. So that's the reason why I put Spy Sweeper on all my computers. So if you go to Webroot here and click on Spy Sweeper, one thing that you can do is, if you don't want to purchase it just yet and you want to see how much spyware you do have on your computer, because sometimes when I'm fixing computers, I want to find out if this person has either a lot of spyware that's slowing down the computer or a lot of programs, because either way it could be one way or the other or both. So Spy Sweeper does offer an option of you downloading a type of scanner for free just to see how much spyware you have. If you do have a lot of spyware, then you can of course buy the actual paid version. And as you can see, it's $30 a year or $40 for 2 years or $50 for 3 years. So the more years you buy, the cheaper it is. But I would highly recommend that, especially if you're trying to, if you're running a business and you really want to take your computer as far as security goes to the next level in protection wise. So Spy Sweeper, Spybot Search and Destroy, that would really cover the spyware, malware, and a lot of Trojan horses. Now, of course, there's no guarantee that Spy Sweeper or Spybot Search and Destroy will protect all of the Trojan horses, because some Trojan viruses are actually viruses. And because of that, that actually moves us into the antivirus realm.